He was a millionaire in a tailored coat, sitting alone on Christmas Eve, with a worn-out teddy bear, and then a tiny voice sliced through the airport noise like a siren. "Mister, are you lost too?" São Paulo's international terminal was packed shoulder to shoulder, the loudspeakers spitting out delays and gate changes while exhausted travelers dragged carry-ons and stared at their phones. In the middle of all that chaos sat Ethan Cross, perfectly still, near a window, as if motion itself might crack him open. Beside his polished dress shoes and leather briefcase, the teddy bear looked out of place, old stitching one-button eye slightly crooked. Ethan kept it close anyway, his fingers resting on it like it was the last thread connecting him to a life he no longer talked about. That's when Lily appeared, no more than 5 cheeks pink from the cold air conditioning, wearing a knitted cat hat and hugging a small backpack to her chest. She tilted her head, studying Ethan like she could see right through the expensive suit. "I can help you find your mommy," she said, calm and certain, like this was the simplest problem in the world. Ethan's throat tightened. He almost said, "I'm not lost." But the word wouldn't come. Instead, he crouched slightly and asked softer than he meant to, "Are you the one who's lost?" Lily nodded, still smiling. "My mom was here. Then Candy?" And she disappeared. Ethan should have called security. He should have followed protocol. But Lily held out her pink-gloved hand, pure trust, no hesitation. Ethan stared at that small hand, then at the battered teddy bear, and something in him shifted. He stood, took her hand, and said, "Okay, let's find her together." Lily didn't walk like a lost child. She walked like a tiny detective with a mission, tugging Ethan Cross through the terminal, as if she'd done this 100 times. The crowds parted in waves, holiday travelers rushing carts, squeaking coffee, spilling, yet Lily kept her chin up, scanning faces with serious little eyes. "First, the candy store," she announced, pulling him toward a row of glittery shop windows, drenched in Christmas decorations. "That's where I saw the gummy bears. My mom lets me have the red ones." Her voice stayed bright, like fear was something other kids carried, not her. Ethan followed, quiet and steady, his long stride slowing to match her short steps. He felt people watching, some smiling, some suspicious, because a man in a sharp suit holding hands with a 5-year-old always looks like a story waiting to happen. But Ethan didn't care. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about meetings or money or deadlines. He was listening. Really listening. Lily talked non-stop. "My mom has hair like sunshine," she explained. "And she wears glasses when she writes. She's making a story about a turtle that learns to fly." "A flying turtle," Ethan murmured, surprised by the warmth creeping into his chest. Lily nodded like it was obvious. "In stories, anything is possible." They checked the candy shop. Nothing. The food court. Nothing. The little arcade corner. Still nothing. Lily's smile finally wobbled for half a second. Then she caught it and straightened it back into place. "Maybe she's looking for me too," she said, thinking hard. "And we keep missing each other." Maybe Ethan answered gently, kneeling beside her, so his voice didn't feel bigger than her bravery. As they stood, an airport employee slowed down, eyes narrowing at the sight of them. "Sir," he asked carefully, "is that your daughter?" Ethan hesitated, logic screaming, "Say no. Follow protocol." But Lily looked up at him with pure trust, like he was the safest thing in this whole chaotic building. Ethan's throat tightened. "Yes," he said softly. "We're just trying to find her mother." A few minutes later, the airport intercom crackled to life, one of those flat, robotic announcements that usually blends into the noise. But this time it landed like a lightning strike. The message described a missing little girl, curly brown hair, red coat, cat-shaped backpack. A nearby flight attendant turned her head, eyes flicking from the ceiling speaker to Lily's face, then to Ethan Cross's hand wrapped around hers. "I think they're talking about her," the attendant said gently. "Come with me." Lily's eyes lit up like Christmas lights. She squeezed Ethan's fingers harder and whispered triumphant, "See, I told you the magic would work." Ethan didn't know what to say to that word magic because his life had been built on numbers, contracts, and certainty. But as they followed the attendant through a short corridor toward the security desk, he felt something shift in his chest, like a locked door loosening. Lily hummed under her breath, badly off-key, a child's version of Silent Night. And Ethan realized with a strange ache that he recognized the melody. Then they turned the corner. A woman stood at the counter gripping her purse strap so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her blonde hair was messy from running, her cheeks flushed not from cold, but from fear she was trying to hide. The second Lily saw her, she broke free with a squeal. "Mom." Mara dropped to her knees and caught Lily in a crushing hug, as if the world might steal her again if she blinked. "Oh, baby. Are you okay? Are you okay?" she kept whispering, laughing and crying at the same time. Ethan stopped a few steps back, suddenly unsure where to put his hands, his heart thumping like he'd done something dangerous. He started to edge away quietly, politely planning to disappear before anyone asked questions. But Mara looked up, eyes shining, and her voice cut through him. "Wait," she said. "You brought her back." Mara rose slowly, still holding Lily like she was afraid the air itself might steal her again. Her eyes stayed locked on Ethan Cross, sharp, grateful, and trembling around the edges. "Thank you," she said. And it wasn't the polite kind people toss out like spare change. It was the kind that comes from the bottom of your ribs. Ethan tried to shrug it off. "She did most of the work," he murmured. "I just kept her company." But Lily, now safe and glowing, reached into Ethan's side without asking, like she'd known him forever, and pulled out the worn teddy bear he'd been guarding in silence. The bear dangled from her small fingers, stitched ear loose, button eye crooked. Mara's gaze snapped to it, and her expression changed. Not curiosity, recognition. The kind that doesn't need an explanation. "Sweetheart," Mara asked carefully, "where did you get that?" Lily hugged it to her chest. "It was in his bag," she said, matter-of-factly. "He looked lonely. So I borrowed it." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed again. He didn't correct her. He didn't reach for the bear. He just stood there, suddenly exposed in a way money and suits couldn't cover. Mara's eyes softened. "It belongs to someone important," Ethan admitted, voice low. "A long time ago." Mara didn't push. She didn't demand details. She simply nodded, as if she understood grief has its own language, and you don't yank it out of strangers in public. In that silent exchange, something passed between them. Not romance, not drama, just a clean human understanding. The airport, meanwhile, kept spinning. Screens flashed cancellations. People groaned. Another announcement echoed through the terminal. More flights grounded, more waiting. Mara glanced up at the board, then down at Lily, who was finally blinking heavy, the adrenaline fading. "Our flight? It might be ours," Mara whispered, exhausted. Ethan checked his watch, then looked at them like he was making a decision he hadn't allowed himself to make in years. "There's a quiet cafe upstairs," he said. "Warm food, softer seats. You both look like you need a break." Mara hesitated. Pride flared. She didn't like needing anything from anyone. But Lily yawned into her shoulder, and the truth hit harder than pride. She was running on fumes. "Okay," Mara said softly. "Thank you." They moved together through the terminal, away from the harsh fluorescent chaos up a staircase to a tucked-away cafe that felt like a secret. A booth by the window waited like a small sanctuary. Ethan helped Mara settle Lily onto the padded seat, folding a coat into a pillow. Lily curled up instantly, teddy bear tucked under her chin, breathing slow and even. And for the first time that night, the world went quiet enough for all three of them to hear something fragile forming in the space between them. Not a rescue, not a fairy tale, just the beginning of a connection that none of them had planned, and all of them somehow needed. The cafe smelled like warm bread and peppermint tea, soft, ordinary comforts that felt almost unreal after the terminal's chaos. Mara sat across from Ethan Cross, cradling a mug between her hands, while Lily slept beside her, curled into the booth, with the battered teddy bear tucked under her chin like a tiny guardian. For a few minutes, they didn't talk. They just listened to the quiet clink of spoons and the distant murmur of announcements drifting up from below. Mara finally cleared her throat. "I really appreciate this," she said. "It was supposed to be a quick layover. I didn't plan for the delays." She studied Ethan the way you study a stranger who doesn't act like a stranger. "Where are you headed?" Ethan hesitated. "Portland," he answered after a beat, then corrected himself with a small shake of his head. "Actually, I'm not sure anymore. My flight's frozen like everything else." His voice was calm, but his eyes looked far away like the airport window had been showing him a different year entirely. Mara nodded slowly. "We're going to Portland," she said. "New city. New start." She gave a small, tired smile that didn't pretend life was easy. "A friend offered us a place while I look for work. I wait tables when I can, and at night I write children's books. It's been hard." Ethan's gaze softened. "Not pity recognition?" "That's brave," he said quietly. Mara let out a breath that sounded more like a laugh. "Some days it feels brave. Most days it just feels like survival." The waitress returned with an extra cup and a fresh pot of tea. Then, without asking, she laid a small wool blanket over Lily's sleeping shoulders. Mara blinked, confused. "I didn't order that." The waitress smiled and nodded toward Ethan. "He did. He said the little one might be cold." Mara turned back to Ethan, caught off guard. "You didn't have to do that." Ethan shrugged as if kindness was a simple fact. She looked like she needed it. Mara stared at him for a long second, throat tightening. "Most people don't notice," she whispered. Ethan met her eyes, voice low and steady. "You're doing a good job," he said. "I hope someone's told you that lately." Mara went still because that was the one thing she hadn't realized she was starving to hear. Mara didn't trust her own reaction at first. Her eyes stung, and she hated how close she was to crying in front of a stranger in a suit. So she looked down at Lily instead, at the steady rise and fall of her daughter's chest under the blanket, at the little cat backpack tucked against the booth, at the teddy bear's crooked button eye, watching the world like it had secrets. Ethan Cross sat back, hands wrapped around his coffee, as if he'd said nothing extraordinary. But Mara could feel it. Those words had landed right where exhaustion lives. "You're doing a good job. Simple, clean, and somehow louder than the airport's speakers." Before she could answer, the night shifted again. Somewhere downstairs, a new announcement rolled through the terminal. More cancellations, more delays, people groaning like the whole building had one tired throat. A flight attendant climbed the stairs and scanned the cafe, her eyes finding Ethan. "Mr. Cross," she asked politely. "We can move you and your companions to the VIP lounge now." Mara's first instinct was to refuse. Pride snapped up like a shield. "Oh, we don't need," she started. But Lily stirred half asleep and mumbled into the teddy bear. Then she blinked up at Ethan with those fearless eyes and whispered, "You said there's hot chocolate there, with the little white pillows." "Marshmallows?" Ethan corrected softly, a real smile flickering for the first time. "Yes, I checked." Mara looked between them. Her daughter, who trusted goodness like it was a fact, and this man who kept offering kindness without collecting anything in return. She exhaled. "Okay," she said quietly. For her, the VIP lounge felt like a different planet. Warm lighting, soft chairs, calm voices, food laid out neatly, like the world wasn't falling apart outside the glass. Lily's eyes widened at the snack table like she'd discovered treasure. Ethan handled the check-in with the staff, while Mara helped Lily out of her coat, still trying to understand how a random Christmas Eve disaster had turned into this. They settled near the windows where the storm still painted the runway in white. Ethan opened his laptop out of habit, tapped out a few emails, then paused as Lily returned carrying a cheap plastic checkers board like it was a crown. "We play," she declared, slamming it onto the table. "And whoever loses has to tell a real secret." Mara groaned, smiling despite herself. "Careful, she always wins." Ethan closed his laptop fully deliberately and set it aside like he was choosing a different life for the next few minutes. "Then I accept," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "But if I lose, you'd better be ready for the truth." Lily wiped the floor with him. Not once, twice. Ethan Cross played well, too. He set traps, tried to lure her pieces, even leaned in with that calm executive focus, like the board was a negotiation table. But Lily's tongue peeked out at the corner of her mouth, her little fingers moving with ruthless precision. When she captured his last checker, she sat back like a queen. "I win," she announced. "Now you tell a real secret." Mara covered her smile with her hand, half embarrassed, half amused. Ethan let out a short laugh, warm, surprised, like it had been sitting in his chest for years waiting for permission. "All right," he said, surrendering with theatrical seriousness. "When I was your age, I hid cookies under my bed. So many that my mom found an entire army of ants having a banquet." Lily squealed. Mara laughed out loud, the kind of laugh that shakes the rust off your ribs. The second round started with Mara joining in, and somehow it didn't feel strange, 3 people in a VIP lounge stuck in a storm building a small island of normal. Lily won again, of course, and Mara sighed dramatically. "Fine. My secret," she said, eyes softening. "I used to be scared to fly." Lily blinked. "But we fly all the time." Mara shrugged, voice quieter now. "Yeah. I learned that being scared and being stuck can feel like the same thing." The words hung there longer than she expected. Ethan didn't rush to fill the silence. He just watched her like he understood more than she'd said. The next game never finished. Lily's eyelids started to droop. Her head tipped against the couch cushion. Mara draped her coat over her daughter with practiced tenderness, smoothing curls off Lily's forehead. Ethan stayed still, staring at them, like he was looking at something holy and unfamiliar. Then Lily stirred, half asleep, rummaged in her little cat backpack, and pulled out a crumbling homemade cookie wrapped in tissue paper. She placed it in Ethan's palm with sleepy ceremony. "I saved it for you," she mumbled. "Mom says good things should be shared." Ethan stared at the broken cookie like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He didn't eat it. He folded the tissue carefully and slipped it into a small compartment inside his leather wallet. An artifact. A promise. A reminder that kindness can be real. A staff member approached later with an update: flights might resume in a few hours. Mara's posture straightened, that familiar brace returning life, always moving, always leaving. Ethan pulled a small notepad from his jacket and wrote something quickly. He tore off the paper and handed it to her without drama. An email address, and beneath it in neat letters the title of the children's book she'd mentioned. Mara looked up, stunned. He remembered. Ethan's voice stayed low. "In case Lily wants a rematch someday," he said. And Mara realized something she hadn't felt in a long time: seen, not saved. Seen. Morning came slowly, like the airport itself was exhausted. The storm outside had finally eased, and the loudspeakers, still droning, carried a different kind of message now. Boarding gates, reopening flights, inching back to life. In the VIP lounge, Ethan Cross stood by the tall windows with a paper cup of coffee, watching the runway lights blink through thinning snow. He looked the same sharp jaw, calm posture, but something inside him had shifted. He wasn't hiding behind his laptop anymore. He was waiting. Then the announcement hit: Flight 828 to Portland. boarding immediately at gate 17. Mara's body went still. She checked the ticket like she didn't trust the universe. It was theirs. Lily blinked awake under Ethan's jacket, rubbing her eyes, hair a mess, still clutching the teddy bear like it had always belonged to her. Mara started fastening Lily's coat button by button, with the quiet hesitation of someone who knows every button can feel like a goodbye. She turned to Ethan, voice small but steady. "I'm not good at saying the right things," she admitted. "But thank you for seeing us, for being kind without asking for anything." Ethan shook his head slowly. "You never needed saving, Mara," he said. "But it was good to walk beside you for a while." Lily tugged his sleeve, serious as a judge. "Will you be on the same flight next Christmas?" she asked, eyes wide and hopeful. Ethan smiled soft, not quite reaching his eyes. "I'll try," he said, and crouched to her level. "Thank you for letting me play checkers, and for the cookie." Lily didn't answer with words. She threw her arms around his neck in a fierce hug, the kind kids give when they mean it with their whole body. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second and held her carefully like she was something fragile and sacred. They left for gate 17 and disappeared into the boarding crowd. Ethan didn't follow. He just watched until they were gone, hands in his coat pockets, heart strangely lighter and heavier at the same time. On the plane, Mara reached into her bag to pull out Lily's sketchpad and froze. Nestled inside was the worn teddy bear. Lily smiled sleepily. "He gave it back to us." Mara turned the bear in her hands, thumb, brushing the loose stitching, and understood the message without a note. Some goodbyes are really just promises, quiet ones. Back in his penthouse in Sao Paulo, Ethan Cross should have been able to forget the airport like every other delay, every other detour. But he couldn't. The broken cookie, still wrapped in tissue, sat tucked safely inside his leather wallet, like a tiny, ridiculous treasure. And for the first time in 5 years, the silence in his home didn't feel peaceful. It felt loud. So he did something that would have shocked the old version of him. He opened his laptop, stared at a blank email, and typed a subject line that felt like stepping off a ledge, bedtime stories. Then he wrote to Mara simple human words. He told her he'd bought the book she mentioned, that it was beautiful, that she was too. No grand promises, no pressure. Just a door left slightly open. Her reply came from the small kitchen in Portland Lily, asleep nearby, with the teddy bear hugged tight. She thanked him for the hot chocolate, the checkers game, the quiet kindness. And just like that, messages became a thread, short at first, then longer, deeper. Midnight stories, little jokes, photos of Lily's drawings labeled Mr. Ethan and the bear. One day, Mara sent a manuscript, a story about a girl lost in an airport who found everything. Ethan read it in one sitting, then quietly sent it to a publisher he trusted. 2 weeks later, Mara received the email that changed her life. "We'd love to publish your book. Sometimes the miracle isn't the storm ending. It's a stranger choosing gentleness when no one is watching, and that gentleness rippling into someone else's future. Now tell me, have you ever met someone for one moment, and somehow they stayed with you forever? Drop your story in the comments. And if you want more cinematic, heart-forward stories like this, subscribe, hit the bell, and join this community. Where are you watching from today?